pain is such a horribly novel sensation.
Welcome, friends. We are back talking Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. We're up to episode 13. This is the one entitled A Tribble Called Quest. Now, there will be spoilers ahead. If those aren't for you, take this as your last warning. Let's crack into it. 10 out of 10 as far as episode title puns go for this one. And speaking of which, something I referenced in my early videos I never really followed up upon. Netflix has added all of the episode titles to their streaming service. Again, not really relevant here. They did it a while ago, but I never actually followed up and let you guys know they did that. This episode, I think, kind of suffered not only from its own heightened expectations, but my personal expectations. Now, that's not to say I hated this episode. In fact, this episode did most of the things I really appreciate and praise Prodigy for doing. It had all the Star Trek elements, it dealt with character building, it moved the story forward, it focused on one of our characters and allowed them to actually utilize their abilities, their Starfleet training, all of that stuff. What really kind of left me feeling a bit underwhelmed, I think, is based on all of the hype and all of the earth-shattering and multiversal changing aspects of the mid-season finale, and then the really great building up of expectations from the mid-season premiere, this just left me feeling like it was kind of a step back. Now, I'm sure you could look at this in two different ways. It's more of the calm after the storm, I guess you could say, a quiet moment to reset and allow our characters to kind of come back into the realm of the reality that they're dealing with. But I do just feel like maybe it was a little too little after too much, especially considering I feel like Chakotay was not quite wasted, but very, very underutilized in this episode. While I didn't expect him to be the main character, I thought that now that he was kind of basically the captain of this crew, or at least co-captains, or the highest ranking, most experienced person they have, that he would be a bit more involved in what was going on. And he did have some good moments here. Probably my favorite moment that he had to do with Rock, because I was very, very appreciative that she was given the spotlight here. She had to utilize her skills. Something went wrong. She had to overcome something, and all of our team had to work together to solve the problem. All of that typical stuff that you get in shows like this. And then everybody learned a lesson from it. I guess I was just hopeful that we would have a bit more of a primary active in the storyline version of Chakotay, but like I said, that little interaction he had with Dahl about trying to figure out who Rok-Tahk was, if they could trust her abilities, trust her to do what she needed to do to get the job done. That was a great callback to one of the best episodes in season 1, and a very competent thing for Chakotay to do, so the little bit we did get to spend with him in this episode did add to his character. While I'm not the biggest fan of tribbles out there, I don't hate them or anything, I just kind of find them to be, a little one-note sometimes. This story did a heck of a lot to kind of bring together most of the tribble stuff we've seen before. So not only was it very referential of obviously the original tribble stuff and a bit of the animated series version, it also very directly tied into the short trek and potentially even into the very short scene we saw in Star Trek Picard Season 3 with the attack tribble being stationed in Daystrom Station. Now that happened later in the timeline, but theoretically that tribble could have already existed before that, or more likely all of the genetic manipulations that occurred in this episode led them to create the attack tribble, either through direct information gained from the Klingon in this episode, or probably Section 31 just figured it out for themselves based on this research or something along those lines. Also got a bit more character work with Zero and Majel in this episode. Majel is kind of unsure what her future is. She's not entirely certain why she even belongs here. She just kind of jumped out of her life and abandoned everything she knew to follow the words of Wesley Crusher, and probably her subconscious and unacknowledged feelings for Zero. And speaking of Zero, things are really starting to come to a head as far as what's going on with their new organic body. We know based on when that body was created, it was said it cannot exist, or it cannot exist for the long term off the planet with the regenerative abilities in their atmosphere and the rings and all of that stuff. So we knew from the very start that once Zero left this planet, it was kind of like a death sentence, or there was a ticking clock. This episode seems to confirm exactly what's going on with that. There's been a couple of hints, or at least things I took as hints in prior episodes. This one specifically states, once the body is injured, it cannot heal, which instantly made me think back to Torchwood when something similar happened to Owen. He died, he was brought back with that alien gauntlet or whatever, but he wasn't really alive. His soul, or whatever you want to call it, was inhabiting his deceased body, but it wasn't really alive, meaning it could never heal. Any injuries were permanent. Now, they did a similar thing in Miracle Day where pretty much everyone underwent the same thing. Everyone was effectively immortal, but they couldn't heal. That's a very dark concept. That's something that's really stuck with me ever since it was introduced. Now, I don't imagine for a second they're going to go down all of the dark and twisted avenues this could actually take us to in this show, but it does leave the mind kind of wandering those corridors of just how creepy and existentially horrific that could be, being trapped in a body that's slowly falling apart and can never heal itself. That is a really creepy type of thing to think about. Now, it's probably going to lead to Zero slowly becoming less and less useful, maybe even losing a limb or something at some point, but inevitably it will probably come out that they have to sacrifice themselves and they'll come back in their normal non-corporeal Medusan form and have learned a great lesson in the process. At the end of the day, like I mentioned, all of the components were here for a good episode. I think its placement in the season is what really let me down as far as feeling a little bit underwhelmed, but I don't fault them at all. It's definitely a fun, rewatchable episode, and I'm very excited to see where they go from here. They rebuilt the Protostar at the end of the episode, they got that drive working, and they're about to head off to meet the Voyager A. I did look ahead, I saw the episode title for next time, so I'm sure everything's going to go awry in that travel. Based on the title and the fact that we have Chakotay on board as well as these Prodigy kids, we may for the first time be seeing this era of people kind of through a crooked mirror, if you want to say. What are your thoughts of this episode? How are you enjoying Prodigy? Whatever you think, leave all that down below. If you want to throw me some money, you can do it through YouTube or my Ko-fi account or Ko-fi or however the heck you say it. Whatever you think, let me know. But until next time,
Crew, let's set a course for home.